Meta's bold move, 2023 transition from fact-checking to community notes signals new era in content moderation. Introduction. In January 2025, Meta announced a significant overhaul of its content moderation policies, marking a departure from its long-standing independent third-party fact-checking program in the United States. Instead, the tech giant is transitioning to a user-driven system known as community notes. This move has stirred extensive debate regarding its implications for free expression, the spread of misinformation, and overall online safety. Timeline of events. 2016, Meta launches its independent fact-checking program to combat misinformation, especially during pivotal times like elections. 2023, in a pivotal speech, Mark Zuckerberg underscores the importance of free expression, setting the stage for a review of Meta's content moderation practices. January 2025, Meta officially announces the end of its fact-checking program, stating the implementation of a community notes system, which allows users to provide context to posts flagged as misleading. The shift to community notes. The introduction of community notes represents a critical transition from expert-driven fact-checking to a community-based approach to content moderation. Meta's leadership argues that this shift will democratize the moderation process, allowing a diverse range of perspectives to shape online narratives while upholding the principle of free speech. Rationale behind the shift. Meta's decision to adopt community notes is rooted in the company's recognition of the limitations of its previous fact-checking approach. Over the years, the independent fact-checking program had faced criticism for being overly intrusive and biased, often wrongly flagging legitimate political discourse. The company reported that a significant portion of content removed under this program was mistakenly flagged, with estimates suggesting that 10 to 20% of actions taken may have been errors. Political landscape influence. The timing of this transition is particularly noteworthy, coinciding with a politically charged environment in the United States. As a new administration perceived to favor less stringent content moderation prepares to take office, Meta's leadership acknowledges the influence of political dynamics on this decision. Joel Kaplan, Meta's chief of global affairs, has openly discussed how the policy change aligns with the values of the new administration, which emphasizes free expression. Balancing free speech and safety. Meta's leadership has laid out the challenges associated with balancing free speech and user safety. While the intention behind the community notes system is to promote open dialogue, there are concerns regarding the potential for misinformation and harmful content to proliferate in an environment with less stringent moderation. Concerns over misinformation. Critics argue that the reliance on community-generated content could lead to the amplification of misinformation. Unlike expert fact-checkers whose assessments are often based on established standards, user-generated notes may reflect personal biases and opinions rather than objective facts. This raises questions about the credibility of the information shared on Meta's platforms and the potential for harmful misinformation to circulate freely. User reporting mechanism. In its new content moderation framework, Meta plans to prioritize the detection and removal of illegal activities and high-severity violations such as terrorism and child exploitation. However, for less severe violations, the company will rely on user reporting before taking action. This shift may lead to a slower response to harmful content, as users will need to flag issues before Meta intervenes. Comparative analysis with X, formerly Twitter. Meta's transition to community notes mirrors a similar approach adopted by X, where community moderation has gained both praise and criticism. Supporters argue that user-driven moderation fosters inclusivity and diverse viewpoints, while detractors warn that it can lead to misinformation and hate speech being amplified. Business and societal impact. The implications of Meta's content moderation overhaul extend beyond user experience to affect advertisers and businesses. On one hand, reduced moderation may create a more dynamic advertising environment. On the other, the potential rise in harmful content poses risks to brand safety and reputation. Reactions from advertisers. advertisers are likely to be cautious about the changes, as the relaxation of moderation standards could lead to a more volatile environment for brands. Concerns over the potential for harmful content to appear alongside their advertisements may prompt some companies to reconsider their advertising strategies on Meta's platforms. Challenges ahead. As Meta navigates this new era of content moderation, the company faces significant challenges in ensuring that community notes effectively address misinformation without devolving into echo chambers. The acknowledgement that harmful content may increase raises critical questions about Meta's ability to mitigate potential damage. The role of community oversight. The success of the community notes system will depend on robust guidelines and oversight to prevent the platform from becoming a breeding ground for harmful content. Striking a balance between free expression and the need for accurate information will require ongoing refinement and monitoring of community-driven moderation efforts. Conclusion. Meta's transition from third-party fact-checking to a community notes model marks a bold and controversial shift in its approach to content moderation. While the intention is to prioritize free expression and foster open dialogue, the potential implications for misinformation and user safety remain a significant concern. As Meta embarks on this new journey, its ability to balance the competing interests of free speech and user safety will be closely scrutinized by users, advertisers, and regulators alike. The outcome of this transition will set a precedent for the broader social media landscape, influencing how platforms manage content moderation in an increasingly complex digital environment. The transition from fact-checking to a community-driven moderation system by Meta in 2023 presents several counterintuitive aspects regarding the implications for misinformation, user safety, and the concept of free speech. Here are some key counterintuitive points. 1. Empowerment versus misinformation. The move to a community notes system is framed as a democratization of content moderation. However, this empowerment of users to provide context may paradoxically lead to an increase in misinformation. While the rationale is that more voices will enhance the quality of discourse, the reality could be that community notes amplify biases and misinformation rather than mitigate them. This raises the question: does giving everyone a voice truly lead to better informed discourse, or does it simply create a cacophony of unverified opinions? 2. Censorship versus free expression. Meta's leadership, particularly Mark Zuckerberg, argues that previous moderation efforts led to excessive censorship of legitimate political discourse, thereby stifling free expression. Ironically, this new approach, intended to enhance free speech, might expose users to more harmful content such as hate speech and conspiracy theories. The assumption that less moderation equates to more freedom overlooks the potential for increased harm in the absence of effective oversight. 3. Political influence. The timing of this policy shift coincides with a politically charged environment, particularly with the incoming administration perceived as favoring less stringent content moderation. This suggests that the decision is not purely about user empowerment but may also be influenced by political considerations. It raises a counterintuitive question: is the push for free speech genuinely about user rights, or is it a strategic maneuver to align with political powers and avoid regulatory scrutiny? For transparency and accountability, Meta claims that the community notes system will improve transparency and accountability by having users contribute to content moderation. However, the reliance on user-generated notes may lead to a lack of clear accountability. If misinformation proliferates under this system, who is ultimately responsible? The shift to community moderation may create a scenario where the platform can deflect criticism by attributing decisions to user consensus, even as harmful content spreads unchecked. 5. Trust in platforms. Users have historically relied on platforms like Meta to provide a degree of reliability and trustworthiness in the information they consume. The abrupt transition from a fact-checking system which aimed to provide some level of assurance about content accuracy to a system that could potentially allow misinformation to flourish could erode that trust. This counterintuitive effect suggests that users may feel less secure using the platform despite the stated goal of promoting free expression. 6. Impact on advertisers. For advertisers, the shift could create a double-edged sword. While a less moderated environment may attract more engagement and a broader audience, it also poses risks to brand reputation if harmful content becomes more prevalent. The assumption that less moderation is better for business overlooks the potential backlash from consumers who may associate brands with the unchecked misinformation present in a more open forum. 7. Community dynamics. The expectation that community moderation will lead to constructive dialogue ignores the potential for echo chambers and groupthink. While the idea is that diverse perspectives will be represented, the reality could be that dominant narratives emerge, sidelining minority viewpoints and exacerbating divisions rather than fostering genuine dialogue. 8. Reduction of automated enforcement. The shift away from automated systems for moderating content is based on the premise that these systems have made errors and over-censored legitimate content. However, relying more heavily on user reporting could lead to inconsistencies and delays in addressing harmful content. This counterintuitive approach raises concerns about the effectiveness of moderation when it is dependent on user engagement, which may vary significantly across the platform's user base. In summary, while Meta's transition to a community notes system appears to champion free expression and user empowerment, it presents several counterintuitive challenges that may undermine the very goals it seeks to achieve. Increased misinformation, potential erosion of trust, and the complexities of community dynamics highlight the nuanced implications of such a significant shift in content moderation policy. Meta's transition from a third-party fact-checking model to a community notes system represents a pivotal shift in content moderation that has significant implications for free expression, misinformation, and the overall safety of online discourse. While the headline changes have attracted attention, there are critical nuances that many observers may overlook which could profoundly impact users and the broader social media landscape. 1. User-driven moderation. Potential for bias and misinformation. One of the most significant yet understated aspects of this shift is the reliance on user-generated content to moderate misinformation. While proponents argue that the community notes system democratizes content moderation, critics warn that it risks amplifying misinformation. The system's efficacy hinges on the diverse perspectives of users, however, the potential for echo chambers is high. If users with similar biases dominate the discourse, the community notes could reflect a skewed understanding of the truth rather than a balanced view. Significance: this shift could lead to a proliferation of misinformation if users do not critically engage with the content. The implications for public health, safety, and political discourse are severe. As seen with past instances where misinformation led to harmful real-world consequences. 2. Political pressures and timing. The timing of this change, coinciding with a politically charged environment and the inauguration of Donald Trump, has raised eyebrows. Joel Kaplan, Meta's chief of global affairs, has acknowledged the influence of the political landscape on this decision. Critics suggest that this move is an attempt to curry favor with a new administration that favors less stringent content moderation. Significance: this political maneuvering could undermine the perceived neutrality of Meta's platforms. By aligning content moderation policies with the preferences of certain political figures, Meta risks alienating users who may feel that their platforms are being used as tools for political gain rather than as neutral spaces for dialogue. This perceived partisanship could further polarize users and erode trust in the platform. 3. Balancing free speech and safety. Mark Zuckerberg's emphasis on free expression raises important questions about the balance between facilitating open dialogue and ensuring user safety. The decision to eliminate third-party fact-checkers reflects a desire to avoid censorship, yet it may inadvertently grant harmful content more visibility. Significance: the challenge lies in determining what constitutes harmful content and who gets to decide that. The shift may lead to an uptick in hate speech, harassment, and misinformation, impacting marginalized communities disproportionately. The potential for real-world harm is a significant concern that must be addressed as the new system is implemented. 4. Missteps in previous moderation. Meta's prior fact-checking program was criticized for overreach and mistakes, with the company acknowledging that a significant portion of flagged content did not violate policies. This acknowledgement underscores the importance of refining content moderation practices. Significance: the transition to community notes must be approached with caution. If Meta cannot effectively implement this new system, the mistakes of the past may repeat themselves, this time with potentially more severe consequences due to the lack of expert oversight. Transparency in reporting errors and the impact of community notes will be crucial for rebuilding user trust. 5. The role of advertisers and business implications. The implications of this shift extend beyond user experience. Advertisers are likely to be deeply affected. A more permissive content moderation environment may attract certain advertisers who prioritize engagement over brand safety. However, the potential rise in harmful content poses risks to reputation and consumer trust. Significance: advertisers may need to reassess their strategies and alignments with platforms that foster less controlled environments. This could lead to a reassessment of partnerships and advertising budgets, which in turn might influence Meta's business model and revenue streams. 6. Community notes versus expert analysis. The transition from expert fact-checking to user-generated notes raises questions about the reliability of information. While the previous system aimed to provide accurate context through expert analysis, the new model relies on collective judgment, which may not always be informed or accurate. Significance: the potential for community notes to misinform users is significant. Users may not have the expertise to evaluate complex issues critically, leading to the spread of unverified or misleading information. This shift could undermine the educational value of platforms that once provided users with vetted information. 7. Broader implications for social media landscape. Meta's decision to adopt a model similar to X, formerly Twitter, signifies a broader trend in the social media landscape towards community-driven moderation. This could prompt other platforms to reconsider their content moderation strategies, potentially leading to a more chaotic information environment across social media. Significance: if Meta's experiment with community notes proves successful, it could inspire similar models across other platforms. Conversely, if it leads to increased misinformation and user backlash, it may result in a re-evaluation of community-driven moderation as a viable long-term strategy. Conclusion: Meta's transition to a community notes system is a bold move that seeks to enhance free expression but carries significant risks. As the company navigates this new terrain, it must address the potential for misinformation, political bias, and user safety. The implications of this shift extend beyond the confines of Meta's platforms, potentially reshaping the landscape of social media moderation. Observers and users alike must remain vigilant as these changes unfold, recognizing that the balance between free expression and responsible moderation is delicate and critical to the health of online discourse. The success of this new model will depend on Meta's ability to implement it thoughtfully, transparently, and responsibly. 1. Shift to community notes. Meta's transition from independent third-party fact-checking to a user-driven community notes system represents a fundamental change in content moderation. This approach is framed as a way to democratize content oversight, allowing users to contribute context to flagged posts. While proponents argue that this empowers diverse perspectives and enhances free speech, detractors warn that it may amplify misinformation due to the lack of expert oversight, raising critical questions about the reliability and safety of information on the platform. 2. Impact of political pressure. The timing of Meta's decision is closely linked to a politically charged environment, particularly with the incoming administration that favors less stringent content moderation. Joel Kaplan, Meta's chief of global affairs, acknowledges that political dynamics influenced this policy shift. This raises concerns about the potential for content moderation to be swayed by political interests, which could undermine public trust and lead to a more polarized online discourse. 3. Balancing free speech and safety. Meta's leadership emphasizes the need to balance free expression with the risks associated with misinformation and harmful content. By reducing reliance on automated systems and external fact-checkers, the company aims to minimize the censorship of legitimate speech. However, this shift increases the likelihood of harmful content circulating freely, highlighting the ongoing tension between fostering open dialogue and ensuring user safety. For business and societal implications, the overhaul of content moderation policies poses both opportunities and risks for advertisers and users. While reduced moderation may create a more dynamic advertising environment, it could also jeopardize brand safety and public trust. Furthermore, the relaxation of restrictions on sensitive topics may intensify public debates and polarize users, necessitating careful management of community-generated content to prevent harmful discourse from escalating unchecked. The effectiveness of this new model will be closely monitored as it sets a precedent for the future of social media governance. 1. The Reformation and the printing press. The introduction of the printing press in the 15th century revolutionized the way information was disseminated and consumed. Martin Luther's 95 Theses, which criticized the Catholic Church's practices, were widely circulated thanks to the printing press. This democratization of information allowed for a broader discourse on religion and governance, leading to significant societal changes and the Protestant Reformation. Similar to Meta's transition to community notes, this historical event highlighted the tension between established authority and free expression, as well as the potential for misinformation to spread rapidly in a newly accessible information landscape. 2. The Pentagon Papers and freedom of speech. In 1971, the publication of the Pentagon Papers, a classified government report detailing the United States' political and military involvement in Vietnam, ignited a fierce debate over press freedom and government transparency. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the newspapers, citing the First Amendment's protection of free speech against prior restraint. This case resonates with the concerns surrounding Meta's shift to community notes, as it underscores the ongoing struggle between the need for informed discourse and the risk of misinformation when the public is empowered to express opinions without rigorous oversight. 3. The rise of social media and Arab Spring. The Arab Spring, which began in late 2010, illustrated the power of social media as a tool for political change and expression. Citizens in countries like Tunisia and Egypt utilized platforms like Facebook and Twitter to organize protests and share information, bypassing traditional media filters. While this led to significant political upheaval, it also resulted in the spread of misinformation and propaganda. This historical parallel to Meta's shift emphasizes the dual-edged nature of user-generated content platforms, where increasing access to free expression may simultaneously amplify the risks associated with misinformation and hate speech. Meta's recent shift from a third-party fact-checking model to a user-driven community notes system represents a significant pivot in content moderation practices, likely shaping the future of social media and online discourse. This transition, motivated by a desire to promote free expression and reduce perceived biases, raises important questions regarding the balance between user empowerment and the management of misinformation. Future predictions and outlook. 1. Increased user engagement. As community notes empowers users to contribute context to flagged content, we may see a rise in user engagement on Meta's platforms. Communities will likely form around shared interests, fostering discussion and collaboration. However, the quality and accuracy of these contributions will vary widely, presenting both opportunities for richer dialogue and challenges in ensuring reliable information. 2. Evolving misinformation landscape. The potential for misinformation to proliferate could increase as the reliance on community-driven moderation grows. While the intention is to democratize content moderation, the lack of expert oversight may lead to unchecked falsehoods gaining traction. Meta will need to invest in educational initiatives to help users discern credible sources and recognize misinformation or risk becoming a breeding ground for harmful content. 3. Regulatory scrutiny and political dynamics. Given the political context surrounding this shift, Meta is likely to face intensified scrutiny from regulators, particularly if harmful content rises significantly. The incoming administration may affect how Meta navigates this landscape as it balances free expression with the need to mitigate the spread of dangerous misinformation. Regulatory bodies may respond by implementing stricter guidelines for content moderation, forcing Meta to adapt its approach further. For impact on advertising and brand safety, advertisers will closely monitor the implications of this shift for brand safety. Increased exposure to potentially harmful content could lead to hesitance among brands to advertise on the platform, affecting Meta's revenue. To counter this, Meta might have to develop new strategies that assure advertisers of safe environments, possibly through enhanced targeting and content controls. 5. Community moderation models. Other platforms will likely look to Meta's model as a blueprint. If successful, this community-driven approach to content moderation could inspire similar initiatives on other social media platforms, including TikTok and Snapchat. This trend could lead to a more decentralized form of content moderation across social media, with varying degrees of success and challenges. 6. Technological enhancements. To support the community notes system, Meta may invest in AI and machine learning technologies to assess the quality and reliability of user-generated notes. Enhanced algorithms could help filter out biases and amplify reputable contributions, thereby improving the overall integrity of the moderation process. 7. Cultural shifts in online discourse. The shift towards community-driven moderation may encourage a cultural change in how users approach online discourse. As individuals become more responsible for the information they share, we may witness a rise in digital literacy and critical thinking. However, this could also lead to echo chambers where similar viewpoints dominate discussions, making it essential for Meta to promote diverse perspectives. 8. Long-term sustainability and user trust. Meta will need to carefully monitor user sentiment regarding this major policy change. If users perceive the platform as a space where misinformation flourishes, it could lead to a decline in trust and user engagement. To sustain loyalty, Meta must demonstrate a commitment to curbing harmful content while promoting healthy debate, necessitating transparent communication and robust community guidelines. 9. Potential backlash and revisions. If the community notes system leads to significant negative outcomes such as increased misinformation or user dissatisfaction, Meta may find itself compelled to reassess its model. This could involve reinstating some level of expert oversight or refining community guidelines to ensure a safer online environment. 10. Global implications. Meta's transition may influence social media governance worldwide. As other countries grapple with similar issues of free expression versus misinformation, Meta's approach could serve as a case study for policymakers seeking to establish their content moderation frameworks. This might lead to a more global dialogue about the responsibilities and ethical considerations of social media platforms. Conclusion. Meta's bold transition to a community notes system represents a pivotal moment in the evolution of content moderation. Prioritizing free expression while introducing significant risks associated with misinformation. The coming years will be critical as users, advertisers, and regulators navigate this new landscape, and the platform's ability to balance these competing interests will determine its long-term success and societal impact. As the digital discourse landscape continues to evolve, Meta's decisions will likely set important precedents for the broader social media ecosystem.